The presenting sponsor of Moon Tower Soccer is FVF Law.
To find out what makes FVF a different kind of injury law firm, you can visit fvf.law.
Hello friends, thanks for listening to Moon Tower Soccer. This week we're going to cover the Austin FC news of the week, including 2 matches in the Coachella Valley Invitational, and we're going to be joined by Scott Specht, who is the newly elected Moon Tower Soccer Games Master for the Over-Under Prediction Game. My name is Landon Cottam, and I'm joined as always by Mr. Jeremiah Bentley.
Hey everybody, I am Jeremiah Bentley, and I assume that you watched the Super Bowl last night. Did you watch the Super Bowl last night?
I actually didn't. I have not watched the Super Bowl in this. I know this is like an annoying type of guy that I am being right now, but I haven't watched it in many, many years, and I haven't really missed it, and so I just haven't gone out of my way to watch it again. I did, however, go back and watch the halftime show the next day. I guess that was this morning. That feels like forever ago. And thoroughly enjoyed the halftime show. I'm like not a big hip hop guy. I'll dabble in hip hop, but I thought just like the overall production product they put on was spectacular. I think Kendrick Lamar is like a very compelling performer. Very much enjoyed that. So I wanted to ask you what your favorite ever Super Bowl halftime show is.
Okay, well, one, I want to comment on the most. I have 2 comments on the Super Bowl on the show last night. One is I was with fellow Gen Xers, and they're like, "No one knows who this guy is," and I'm like, "The dude won 22 Grammys. We are not the audience for like this. Like, our interests are not relevant to pop culture.
Yeah, it's okay when things aren't for you sometimes.
yeah, it's okay." And now I'm going to answer with 2 things that were for me. So one, like I loved Prince playing "In the Rain" in Minneapolis in that Super Bowl. Like Prince playing Purple Rain in the Rain. At that
Jeremiah,
Super Bowl
you can
was an
stop there because that's the right answer.
Okay. Good. I'm glad that was yours too.
But go ahead. What's the other one?
Oh, then for nostalgia's sake, I also love the one with like Dre and Eminem and Kendrick Lamar, I believe, had a cameo, and Mary J. Like that. Those are my 2 favorites.
Yeah, the Prince one is, good Lord. Like that man playing guitar is one of my favorite things in the world, and I'll watch him do it anytime at all, especially live. So yeah, that one was great.
And then we're just going to talk about Prince now. The While My Guitar Gently Weeps, when the Traveling Wilburys got into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
I feel like this has come up on the show before.
I think it has.
Randomly.
It's one of the most insane guitar solos that I've ever, I don't know, solos or performances, period, that I've ever seen. It's Prince just like killing it.
And just all these other just like killer musicians and guitarists just looking at him like even they were in awe of what he was doing on the stage. But yeah, I love the way that guy plays guitar. And I'm very glad that there's lots and lots of footage of him doing that.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. Well, the thing I was going to bring up that was random. Wait, you have a Super Bowl thing?
I still have more Super Bowl thing. Going back to the Kendrick Lamar thing.
Yeah.
I don't want to wade into the whole Kendrick Lamar Drake controversy, because I don't know that much about it. But can you imagine getting into an argument with someone and them writing a song about how much you suck? Period. Let's stop there. That would probably not feel good. Then let's say that became a hit record, and then they let him sing it at the Super Bowl and everyone loved it. Like, that can't feel good, man.
And then Serena Williams randomly shows up to dance. And I was like, that girl looks a lot like Serena Williams. And then my wife is like, that's because it is.
I hope no one ever sings a song at the Super Bowl about how much I suck.
I mean, that's fair. Also, you would have made it if you're like so terrible that somebody's qualified to like do a Super Bowl halftime show, sings about you. You've done something. I don't know what, but man, my 15-year-old and all his buddies on TikTok, they loved it. Apparently, that was all the talk of Westwood High School. This morning was that halftime show. You know, forget my other random thing. Let's talk about Austin FC now.
All right, let's get into the Coachella Valley Invitational. Austin FC played 2 games, both of them 2 1-1 draws, but I feel like, I know I did, I feel like most people will come away with the summary that these were 2 very different games and probably felt very different about these 2 games, even though the final result was the same.
I think that is very fair. I feel like Austin definitely had more energy and more control of the match in the second match. I guess let's start on the first one. So we'll just talk just about the goals, and then we can kind of get into like our highlights and lowlights of it. So first one's LA. LA scores the opening goal after 8 minutes through Gabriel Peck, who tapped it across from Ruben Ramos Jr. And then Austin found an equalizer pretty late. Great move from Owen Wolf here. Set the chance by beating his man, Osman Bukhari. Cleans up the ball, ties it. And then I think CJ or somebody like hit the crossbar. Almost picked the victory later.
Vicenen hits the crossbar on a set piece, and then CJ had one saved, I think. Or maybe it was the other way around.
Yeah.
But there were a few chances, but mostly going the Galaxy's way in that game.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this one was a mostly mixed lineup still, right? We got a one lineup for 45, which was not anywhere close to what a starting lineup you'd expect to look like. A whole line change at the half, except for Brad Stuver. Then Stephen Cleveland came on and played like 30 minutes, and then we had a handful of other guys come on and play 30 minutes.
And then before we get into the second one, do you want to talk about the Svatok versus Diego Fagundez / Diego Fagundez versus most of the Austin FC fan base on the internet dust up?
Talk about rap beefs.
Yeah.
Let's see Svatok drop a track about Diego Fagundez. Yeah, this was, I don't know. I think there's a lot of stuff in this game that I would have been like a little more fired up about had it been a real game. But because it was preseason and I knew it didn't matter, I was just able to just thoroughly enjoy it all. And this was one of the parts that, okay, so there's a ball played through. Svatok and Diego are running shoulder to shoulder. Svatok gets enough of a shove on him that he kind of has the edge on the ball. Fagundez goes in and fouls him and knocks him down. He goes down, and it seems like Svatok like grabbed his jersey and maybe threw a leg out and tripped him after that as well. They both stand up. Fagundez comes up and shoves Svatok. And this is the thing that happens in soccer games a lot, right? You get the shove, you get the chest bumping and all of that. And I kind of figured that's what Svatok was going to do after that. What we got instead was Svatok going after him like it looked like he was trying to wrap his hands around Fagundez's neck and just pop his head off. That's like the motion he went after him with. And I was like, oh, yes, don't mess with this guy. He's scary.
He's like a giant, and just the size differential is a big part of it, right? Like Svatok is a big, scary Ukrainian man. And Diego's none of those things. And then like Ilie gets involved later and kind of like picks Diego up and almost carries him away or something.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, it's just not like, I don't know that it would have been like a super memorable other than the fact that then, I think was it the False Nine that said something on Twitter /X about Diego wanting none of it, and I think Diego's dad at some point both decided to get online and argue somewhat with Austin fans about what happened in that moment.
Yeah. You know what? The general wisdom is always to A, read the comments, and B, tweet when you're mad. That's what all the smart people do, right?
Yeah.
Diego Fagundez took both of those pieces of advice and was doing both of those things. And it was kind of bizarre to me to see at least like Austin FC sickos who are paying attention to these games, who have, in general, I would say, been mostly like still Diego Fagundez fans. All of them just like instantly turn on him and be like, actually, I hate this guy now. Svatok's my boy.
So, yeah, this is probably a lesson about fans in general, right? Like when you're gone, you're gone. Then you get new guys to fall in love with. So this is a weird little moment out of that. Then, yeah, we get the match from Saturday. This lineup is a lot more probably the first 11 from among the healthy, what we might have out of now. This one also ends up 1-1. This is one that Austin leads almost the whole match, right? Austin gets a goal from Obrian here, and then St. Louis levels it super late. Because I think I saw the meme being like, oh, Austin conceding goals after the 80th minute, a tradition like no other. But still one where Austin felt like it was on the front foot most of the match.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is worth going over the starting 11 for this one. Just because this seems like for who's in the country and has a visa and has been in the country for more than 2 days and is fit to play, this seems like Estevez's starting 11. And so it was Stuver in goal, of course, and then center backs Heinzike and Cascante, which is interesting. I could have imagined a scenario where Svatok is a day one starter, but if we're looking at this as starting 11, then it's Cascante and Heinzike. Then Guilherme Biru, left back, John Gallagher right back because Desler is unavailable. We'll get into that a bit later on. Then Ilie Sanchez, Danny Pereira, Owen Wolf in the midfield, Hodder Obrian, Osman Bukhari on the wing, and then Brandon Vasquez at the 9. Like that looks like a starting 11, right? I don't think you could.
Yeah, these are your starters. These may well be like 10 of the 11 opening day starters when it comes to February 22nd.
Yeah.
Given what we know about what's going on now. So I guess it's good that Austin did have the better performance in this one, given who was playing. 'Cause even wasn't the goal that Austin gave up after sort of the mass substitutions came on? Weren't those substitutions around 70 or so?
87th, 88th minute, and the mass subs came in the 63rd minute, and they subbed out every outfield player.
Okay.
So it was several teenagers and undrafted or unsigned draft picks on the field at that point in time.
Yeah, it's one thing. Well, let's go into our overall assessment about these two preseason games. I just say, like, this is outside the playing style, but the one thing that I was going to start with that I noticed is, like, when you saw the LA lineup and there were these mixed 11s and you think about who wasn't already in the country and on the team, like, this is definitely a deeper team than it has been for at least the last 2 years. The fact that you can mix those 11s and have, like, competent, replacement level MLS players across the board, and this is without having Desler or Sabovic or Uzzini available, like, makes me feel better about the floor of this team for sure.
Yeah, I think that is true. I think it's also true that you can kind of see that it is not a perfect roster still and not as deep as the Galaxy, because they played a pretty strong 11, but had not yet signed who will likely be their starting striker. Joseph Paint still is out with injury. And then they had some other guys kind of come on later who may very well be starters on game day 1. So I think that was a bit of a grounding point as well. That, like, okay, the Galaxy is still a much deeper team than we are, but like you said, Austin is a much deeper team than they have been in the last 2, 3, 4 years, maybe.
So let's go into your overall assessment about playing style. What have you seen from Nico out of these matches that makes you think about how Austin might play differently in 2025 versus previous seasons under a different leadership?
Yeah, I like, we'll say it's not uncommon for what we see in preseason to change, but let's talk about what we did see here. And I'm assuming some of this will carry through to the regular season. So the defensive shape was a 4-4-2, which is what we saw Austin do for most of their existence. With the attacking midfielder joining the 9 at the top of the defense. And then offensively, we saw mostly like a 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1 kind of look, but with some very fluid patterns to the point where I hate even putting numbers on it because they're not super helpful. We've talked about that before, but we'll say 4-3-3 with a lone 6 just as a starting point. So in the build-up, they would start up with a back 4. Sometimes the 6, who is Ilie Sanchez in this scenario, dropping between center backs, but usually trying to stay central in the midfield. And then 2 attacking midfielders ahead of him. We'll say 8 and 10 for the one more likely to drop deeper and the one more likely to push forward. So Danny was the 8, Owen Wolf is the 10. So Danny would either start deeper to assist in the build-up. We saw that more against the Galaxy. And then against St. Louis, we saw him stay quite high, and they would try to build up with just the one midfielder in that area. And then as they would progress the ball further up the field, this is probably the most interesting little shakeup we saw, is you would see the ball side fullback usually pushing up a little bit higher to help form a passing triangle on that strong side sideline, and then the backside fullback would shift into central midfield and play essentially as a midfielder. And then as the ball would rotate back around, you'd often see that fullback who's in the midfield make an inside run. Instead of like you're used to seeing fullbacks overlap, they were underlapping and making a run up the middle. And then either the winger or the other midfielder would drop wide into where you would normally expect a fullback to be in that position. So again, this could all change. I feel like that is a thing we will continue to see, or some version of that. And folks who watch the Premier League, you will have seen Zinchenko do this for Manchester City and for Arsenal, and then various players on both of those teams do some version of this. But Biru and at times even Gallagher and Riley Thomas, and then John Coleman when he's on the field, they were all kind of floating into midfield at some point. So I'd expect that to continue to be a thing.
Yeah, and I was going to add on to that because I've always have in the back of my head when we're talking about these things, Nico's the preseason is a lie thing, and I think that's true in terms of like you can't overreact to what you see out of individual player performances in isolation. But I think things like this shape, this rotation, these adjustments, what you see for the young players he talks about, like these things are probably things you can read into a preseason performance that will carry into the regular season. Now it's who scores the goals or doesn't or whatever, probably you don't need to worry too much about, but the way they play, where people are lined up on the field, these rotations, like the passing triangles, things like that, I think those are applicable to what we can expect to see out of this team in the regular season.
Yeah, that's a very good point to make. And we talked about like, okay, where chances are going to come from? How are they going to get these guys that we think can help create chances into these spaces? And part of it was like, okay, yeah, Guilherme Biru floating in the midfield and then making an inside run and becoming part of the attack with Owen Wolf kind of floating wide. Like, I think these are things that suit those two players specifically really, really well to get Biru into spots where he can get on the ball, help progress the ball forward, make chances happen in the final third. And then the same for Owen Wolf, where you can get him into spaces where he can be dynamic with the ball. And then talking about rest defense, we talked about this a couple weeks back. One of those two guys, depending on who makes the run and who's wide at the time, being the one, like if we do lose the ball, you're in a good spot to then go challenge the ball and be in a spot to stop that transition attack. These feel like much more strategic and structurally sound than attacking shapes than we've seen from Austin in the past, and that's encouraging to me as well.
Let's maybe go into
one other alternate look we saw. This was against the Galaxy. I don't know if this was like a reaction to the game or if Estevez was just practicing changing shapes in the middle of a game. But I think the last 30-ish minutes we saw them drop into a back five. And so Antonio Gomez came on for Diego Abarca. Gomez is a center back. Abarca is a winger. So he dropped in as a third center back. Gallagher and Kolmanich were then the wing backs. And in the attack, Gallagher would push up super high as a winger. Kolmanich would drop in and was just playing straight up central midfield for a lot of the attacking phase. And so that was another shape that we saw that, like, is that the absolute best position for Jean Kolmanich? Maybe not. I don't think it's terrible. I thought he did okay there, but I think that is a place where in a certain shape, in a certain game state against a certain opponent, to put Guilherme Biru in that spot does feel pretty good. Like I wouldn't be mad about seeing that in certain moments.
All right, let's go on to maybe, I don't like the way you wrote this. I'm going to be positive focused, but I'm going to stick with like what we didn't like first because it's a shorter list.
Oh, I wanted to finish on a positive.
Okay, I'm with you. And we kind of already talked a little bit about it. Like the first half against the Galaxy, they looked disjointed. They looked outmanned. To your point, that's probably going to happen to a lot of teams that are playing a mixed 11 in preseason form against an LA Galaxy team. It's probably the most talented team in the league, so hopefully don't worry too much about that.
Trying to press the Galaxy pretty much just cut right through it every time. Galaxy did play a fairly strong 11 against Austin's was a very mixed 11, so I think we can't take too much away from it, but we did not look great. The offense didn't look great. We didn't keep a ton of the ball. We didn't get a lot of great chances. And so, yeah, I think there's some positives it takes from that game, but overall it didn't look great.
Yeah, and then in St. Louis, the club looked great, and I think it created a lot of chances, and just didn't convert those chances.
Yeah, I agree. Like they looked like the better team for that whole game and got a lot of chances, and it still ended 1-1. And you can again, they had a whole line change. They had a weaker side on at the end of the game, but you'd like to see this team be able to reward themselves a bit more and get those goals when they get the chances early and not have to be in a situation where they're defending 1-0.
Yeah, and then the other one is the thing that we, I think, both hated, and the thing that caused a lot of questions among the Austin fan base was not seeing Mikael Desler on the field, and we have a good reason for that now.
Yeah, we have this in our things we didn't like category here, and because we all assumed he was injured. We get the news today, Monday, day of recording, that he's now gotten a green card, and Jeremiah was able to get confirmation from a source that that is why he missed these games. There is not the green card and an injury. It's he wasn't there because of the green card, and he's actually completely healthy.
Right. Yeah, I guess the thing is like you have to be back overseas to like as the final steps of picking the card up, and so that's why he was away. So we have no reason to believe that he will not be part of the club on opening day, or if there's anything wrong with him at all. And then it gives Austin now one international roster slot and one senior roster slot available. I would expect they're not going to do anything with it until the summer, but what a great opportunity to have to improve this club once there's a few games in, or half the season in, to really see where there's a position of need.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to know they can if they want to.
Yeah. What about things you liked?
Yeah, I think this is. I mean, again, I actually added this. So we know, again, not to read it too much into this, but this is a new group. I think it's warranted to be excited about seeing some of these new guys play and see how they're going to play together. One thing I really liked is how often they were looking to play direct. It looked like all the guys on the front line and even some of the midfield players were always ready to make a run. And the deeper players on the field were always looking to play the ball to them. It seemed like that was a thing that Austin tried to do more under Wolf the last year or so, but it always felt like kind of an afterthought, and very rarely was the player in an advantageous position or an advantageous moment to pull it off. And then even when they were, maybe that player couldn't actually hit that pass. And it seemed to happen more and more and more in both of these games where they were looking for that vertical run and played it, and it came off a lot of times. And so we got a lot of Osman Bukhari taking dudes on and just roasting people, especially against St. Louis, which, again, I think that was a much weaker performance and team than what we saw against the Galaxy. So I really liked that. And then in that same vein, I really liked what Brandon Vasquez brought in terms of his aerial presence when they played some balls into him. And there was one, I think this was against St. Louis, where Bukhari plays kind of a vertical short cross to him, and he's at the edge of the box and just like out of nowhere puts in a shot on target with his head, and just like the aerial ability and strength to A, win that ball, and then B, the skill to place the ball on frame like that so well. That's encouraging. And then also whenever both teams, when they were pressing us high, we would often just play a ball through lines to Vasquez's feet, and he could hold it up or lay it off to someone and then continue the attack. And then it's almost like a counterattack moment where we have them kind of out of the other team's defense out of sorts, and we turn and go. As opposed to what we saw the last few years is in those moments, okay, we broke a line, everyone get in shape again. Let's keep the ball some more.
Right, reset.
So we didn't see that as much. It was like, we have them out of position. Let's go for it.
Yeah, and from Vasquez, that was, we talked about this before, we talked about when we signed him, but the mixed abilities of a player to both be a big physical presence in the box, then actually play the ball a little bit, or just something that Austin's never had before. I mean, you can think of so many times when you saw Jesse Sardes like trying to play a ball with his feet, or trying to connect in the attack, or trying to get the end of a pass and not being able to do that. And so it was very evident that this is a very different striker and something Austin's never had before. And then we also saw like CJ Fodre, which is weird. It seems like he's a fit now. Like he's kind of found his spot. Or I mean, he's not going out and scoring 15 goals this year or anything or whatever, but he seems like much more in his element playing center forward in this lineup than he did playing wing in any previous version of Austin FC.
Yeah, I think so as well. And I think he got 45 minutes against the Galaxy and had some good looks in that game. He played like that last 30 minutes as the striker against St. Louis. He didn't get as many opportunities to kind of show himself in that one. I will say, like, when they tried to play to his feet with his back to goal, it was a very clear drop off from what
Yeah.
Vasquez was doing. But talking about like making runs behind, movement in the box, being able to challenge physically while in the box, he looked really good and like quite natural at those things. So that is encouraging to know that we have another just big body like that to throw in at certain moments in the game.
And I think, especially Owen, I liked everything I saw from Owen Wolf. And
I think Owen
Danny
and Danny
was good too. Yeah.
I think these games are good examples of how their games are different, and that the things we saw Owen do really well are probably not things that we're going to see Danny do well, and vice versa. Like, but I thought they both had, especially in the St. Louis game, really strong showings from both of them. And I know I've been skeptical about like, okay, can either of them be creative enough to be the guys playing as those more forward midfielders? I think if you're saying like, okay, they're just going to be a straight up 10 coasting around the middle of the field and we're relying on them to play that final ball, I still think the answer is no. But the way that they were being used in that game, it wasn't asking them to do that thing. It was asking them to just be clean, be hard to get the ball off of, and then in Owen's case, be a really good athlete and be able to just like run past dudes sometimes. And we saw that on the goal against St. Louis where he gets in behind on a throw in, I think, and like strengths and speeds past a couple of guys down to the end line and is able to get his foot onto a ball at the very last moment as he's getting shoved out of bounds, and it trickles across goal and O'Brien just smashes it in. Like, that is a thing that Owen is really good at. And if we can get him in those moments, he can make special things happen. Same for Danny deeper in the field. Like, we don't need him to be the 6 because we have other players who can progress the ball, but he can still use those qualities in other spots of the field to make other things happen and to open up spaces for other people. So yeah, I was really happy with both of those guys.
Yeah. And that Owen play was just, I mean, it's just beautiful. It's one of the things I love the most is when a ball gets the end line and somebody can just sort of like muscle it and skill it back across and make it still dangerous. Because I feel like that time, so many times people like just try to kick a ball off the guy to get like the corner or whatever, and don't like continue the attack there. And in that particular moment, he did such a good job. Those are not the only midfielders that played for Austin FC. So would you like to maybe close out the summary of these two matches with talking about somebody else?
Do you want to read what I wrote in the notes here, Jeremiah?
Yeah, Irvin MF Torres.
I think that's his middle name. MFing is his middle name. Irvin, he looked really solid in these games. Like last year, we saw him play, I think, the one game with the first team, and we saw him play quite a bit with Austin FC 2. And with the first team, he didn't stand out, meaning like he didn't look bad. You probably didn't notice him much on the field with the first team, and for a 16-year-old, that's a pretty high compliment. In this 45 minutes and I think 30 minutes against St. Louis, he looked like he belonged on an MLS pitch. He played, I think there was one curling ball into the box for Rubio that Rubio got his head on it and it needed saving. And then there was one moment against St. Louis where he plays like a little 1-2 with Micah Burton in the midfield and then touches it around a defender, runs around the other side, picks it up, and with his first or second touch, plays a beautiful through ball to spring whoever the left wing was in that moment. And like, to see a kid doing that against MLS competition at the age of 17, like barely 17, is really, really encouraging. So like, I don't know how much he'll get to play with the first team. I'm sure it'll be some, but I don't expect him, just with all the new reinforcements Austin has, to get a ton of run out with the first team. It would be really cool if he could get some Open Cup minutes and then get some spots here and there. But at the very least, I would really like to see him step up and kind of run the show for Austin FC 2 this year. And he's going to be 17 for this entire season. And so I know we're anxious to see the young guys play, but even getting that many minutes and having that kind of role with the second team will be really big for a kid like this. And then whenever he gets his shots with the first team, then he can get peaks at that as well.
Well, so we've got one more match to go in Coachella. So it's on February 12th. It's closed door against Charlotte. think there's a match next weekend, Saturday. On Saturday, it's also another closed door match at Q2. That's the end of the preseason. We did get one of the two players as of last week that were not in the country is in the country now. So Basar Sabovic is here. Still no word on Azuni. I don't remember where this article came from, but there was like a translated article where he talked about what he was excited about, how he's ready to be here, ready to play in the midfield. You've already talked about 3 exciting Austin FC midfielders. So, and we expect him to be, we didn't even talk about Dubrasarski. We expect to be Sabovic to maybe be like one of the best of them. What does this look like when he's here and when he's up to speed, right? Because at this point, it's going to be probably a few matches before he's like fully in and ready to go.
Yeah. I think this is a really big question of when he is fully fit and ready to go. I would expect him to step right into the starting lineup. Like just from what I've seen of him, the level he's played at, I think his quality is that good that he should be a starter for this team. But then the question is like, who gets left out? And I don't know what the answer is. I think it kind of depends on what Estevez wants from Sabovic. And then, okay, who of it being Danny and Owen, we're assuming, which of those guys' profiles fit what he wants from that other midfielder? And so if we're looking at Danny, we talked about him being more of a, we'll call it an 8 for now, like more often dropping in to help with the build-up, defending centrally in the defensive shape, and then offering more ball control and that ability to kind of progress through midfield. And then Owen being more of the like 10 profile, he defending at the top of the shape, staying higher up more often than not, and then offers that dynamism and that athleticism in the attacking third and defensively. Like which of those profiles fits better with Sabovic? And I don't know what the answer is. Do you have a pick? What would your gut be here?
No, I was waiting for you to tell me because I haven't seen enough of Sabovic. I think it'll be interesting to see how Sabovic adapts his game to MLS. And so I don't think we'll necessarily know like right away, even when he's up and fit, up to form, like what the best combination is. And I mean, Ilya is kind of a part of that too, right? Like how he plays and how that connect is like relevant. I still think it's probably, I feel like with a regard for Danny, like I think it's still probably more Danny than Owen. And I think I'm really, one of the things I'm most curious about with Owen is like, is he going to finally find his position? Is he going to be locked into one? Or is he still going to like play a little right back sometimes and maybe on the wings and fill in spots sometimes? Like, is he still a utility knife or does he make that step forward where he's like, no, I'm a midfielder. I'm going to be like kind of a 10 and that's what I'm going to be. And then I think that makes the minutes more challenging, but maybe makes him like a stronger overall player.
Yeah. And like part of Owen's strength is his flexibility, right? And so, but I think we're deep enough at all the other positions that we won't need to play him elsewhere. And then if he can progress the way we think and hope he will this year, that it's not going to be like, okay, I guess we'll play him in midfield. It's like, no, we're going to play him in the midfield because he's good and that's where he needs to be playing. But you talked about kind of the flexibility. I think that's one of the things that maybe makes this question either more or less interesting is that like these guys can all play slightly different roles in the midfield. They're not all just one kind of guy. And so I think you could in one game ask Danny or Sabovic or Owen to do one thing and then the next game ask them to do a slightly different thing. Or I think Sabovic is also good enough defensively and positionally that if you need him to play the 6 and be the deeper guy, you could play him and Danny and Owen, and that would probably be fine too. And so I think this just offers Estevez the ability to play the guys who are fit, play the guys who are in form, play the guys who you think are best for this particular matchup. Like those are great choices to have in a midfield that we've often not had. And my concern here is maybe are they a little too samey? Maybe, but they're all flexible and they can play in slightly different roles. And I think they're all going to get a lot of minutes this year.
Yeah, it's a very exciting time to have this to worry about it because I feel like in the past, the midfield, we've talked about how everybody's deficiencies are all kind of the same, and they couldn't make like one complete player. And now it seems like we're coming at it from a different angle. Let's go ahead and take a break. Do you want to set up what we're going to do after the break before we do it, though?
So we're going to be joined by Scott Speck to do the over-under prediction game. He is stepping in for Marcelo Tayson as our games master this year. Marcelo has moved to another city and starting new job and a new life, so he didn't think he could fully commit himself to his duties. So Scott's going to step in and do that for him. And then after that, we're going to come back with some more Austin FC news. So don't stop listening after the game. But yeah, hang tight. We'll be right back.
No one is around.
Moon Tower Soccer is brought to you by our friends at FEF Law, the official injury lawyers of Austin FC.
FEF is a different kind of personal injury law firm dedicated to community, transparency, and client education. And they have their own podcast called Summary Judgment. You can check it out wherever you get your podcasts.
You can go to FEF.law to find out what makes FEF a different kind of injury law firm and why understanding your legal options can dramatically change the outcome of a case. Once again, that's FEF.law. Amplify Credit Union is a member-owned financial cooperative that served the needs of Central Texans for over 5 decades. As a credit union, Amplify has no shareholders or parent companies. That means more of your money stays in the community.
Amplify has been the home of fee-free banking since 2022. Their free checking accounts come with 0 overdraft fees or minimum balances. That means Amplify's fee-free checking accounts help you get more mileage from your everyday spending.
Amplify membership is open to any Texas resident. Learn to trust your bank again at Amplify Credit Union. To learn more and to register for free parking at the Amplify Esperanza branch on game day, go to www.goamplify.com/moontower-soccer. All right, we are back. We're going to jump into our 2025 over-under prediction game. We are not joined this year by Marcelo Tayson, who it was his idea to do all of this, and we're extremely grateful for the last few years that Marcelo has helped us with this. He's moved to another city and kind of decided that he wasn't going to have as much time to put into this, and asked us to find someone else to help with it. And Scott Speck graciously stepped up to the plate. And we haven't seen these questions yet, but just from the conversations we've had and kind of the prep we've seen you doing, I think it's going to be great. So Scott, thanks so much for stepping in and doing this.
No problem. Thanks for offering this, and thanks for letting me help out.
So what are we in for here? What should listeners know? What should we know?
So the first thing I want to thank Marcelo. He gave me a lot of good advice and tips for this, and this really is kind of like his idea, and so I'm just kind of trying to continue it on. I put together 21 props. Everything is going to be MLS regular season unless otherwise stated. There's a couple of US Open Cup props, and there's a couple that are going to be all competitions, but that's still going to only include the MLS regular season. We're not going to be too optimistic and count on playoffs. I also wanted to thank everybody in LV Slack who offered up suggestions, especially the people who didn't just use that thread to make inside jokes. I know you think you're funny. You're not. Like I said, there's 21. There will also be a tiebreaker at the end, just to make sure that nobody ties. And then there's going to be a chance for all the listeners to put in their own over-under picks. There'll be a form for that that'll come out in the next couple of weeks before the season starts.
All right, cool. Well, I think we're ready to get started.
Okay, the first prop I have for the two of you is number of Austin FC hat tricks, and the line is 0.5. Keep in mind that there's only been one in the history of the club, but with all the offensive firepower that has been added, this I felt like a fun way to start.
And the most fun answer to that is like the one is, Scott?
Yeah.
Musajite, right?
Yeah, and in 20 minutes at that.
That was crazy.
Possibly the best 20 minutes anybody's ever played for Austin FC.
All right, I will go
Jeremiah,
first.
do you want to go first on
I'll
this
take
one?
it.
We can take turns.
I'll take it, and I will take under. I'm gonna rely on a balanced attack, and not have a hat trick for the club this year.
It's a very not fun answer, Jeremiah.
I'm gonna say over. We're in the past we have at times we tend to agree with each other on all of this stuff, so we will pick opposite sometimes just for the sake of competition. But I actually am going to go over on this wholeheartedly. And I'm even going to call my shot and say it's going to be Uzuni.
Oh, that's so much more impressive to try and call your shot. I ran these by a couple of people, and somebody told me that the line on this should be 1.5, and I thought that was wildly optimistic.
Yeah, do you have stats on like how many most teams have? Isn't it true
no,
that
actually,
the Portland Timbers have never had a hat trick?
I think that's still true.
Yeah, so it like 0.5 is still a pretty fair line.
Yeah, that's what I thought putting it together. So thank you for that. Austin FC is hosting the All-Star game this year, so the number of Austin FC All-Stars I've set it at 1.5. Keep in mind that Nico gets a pick, so this is really kind of determining if Austin's going to get another All-Star outside of that, assuming that he picks one of his own players, which would be weird if he didn't.
I'm going to start my campaign now for Nico Estevez to use that pick on Brad Stuver, no matter what.
Yeah.
Because I feel like at least one of these years he's been slighted. Will we have a second one? I'll take the optimist line again and say yes. We're gonna have two.
Do you want to call your shot on who you think the other extra All-Star is, or?
I feel like based on I'm setting myself down a path here, and want to say Uzuni again, but
I can't wait to see you disagree with yourself later in this. So I'll also go over. Yeah. I'm not going to call who the second All-Star is.
Okay. Both of you went over. That's a great start. Next one is Austin FC away wins. In 2022, there were 8. In 2023, there were 3. And last year, there were 4.
3.
I set the line at 4.5.
Forgot how bad this team was away. I mean, I guess I don't know what the home wins probably weren't all that great either. So I'll start. I'm gonna go over on this one. I may regret it because I feel like one of the things that I've noticed is a lot of the teams that miss the playoffs in the West are better, and it feels like our path to the playoffs may live through like winning at home all the time, not winning on the road. But I'll still go over.
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
If this team's gonna be any good, they have to win more than 4 games on the road, though. So, yeah, I'm going to say over as well.
Okay, perfect. Number of weather delays at Q2.
Oh, no.
This is going to be for all competitions. I'm setting it at 1.5. Because looking back through, it was either like 1 or 2. There's one year there was 3, but that seemed like kind of an outlier. So I put it at 1.5.
Yeah, I feel like the line got set high last year because of the crazy amount the year before.
Yeah.
1.5.
And this is to Landon.
I'm going to continue my streak of optimistic picks and say under.
This is usually where I get confused by being optimistic and under, but I'll be. Wait, Scott, were you there? Did you stick around for the 2-hour crazy people in the pouring rain and lightning playing up and down LA Galaxy? What was that?
There was a Galaxy one this past season in 2024 I did stay for. I didn't make the one in 2023 where the game ended like the next day.
Oh, that was the one I was thinking about. Was the one the one where the game ended
that
the
was
next
20
day.
Yeah, that was 2023. I wasn't at that game, but I was at the one this past season, which was the wettest I've ever gotten from a rainstorm.
Okay, I'm going to go more rain. I will go over.
Okay, so I have a couple of U.S. Open Cup ones now that we're sure that Austin's going to be competing in it. Number of U.S. Open Cup wins, 1.5.
And so there's only the max possible is like 5 games for an MLS club, right?
That sounds right. And keep in mind, it's already been announced that we're going to have the first game at home, and it's going to be against a USL or lower team. So
okay, this one's yours, Jeremiah.
It is mine. I'm remembering the optimism we had after 2022 on stuff like this, where I think we said like, oh, Austin's going to play like a dozen extra games, and none of that happened. But I'm going to go over. I'm going to be optimistic.
Okay, and Landon?
I want to say over as well because we're going to get a lower level side in that first round, which in the past has not meant anything. But I'm optimistic about this team, and I think we should, at the very least, be able to beat a second or third division team in one game, and then hopefully another one after that.
Okay. I mean, I'm loving the optimism. I think everybody's like very high on hope right now, and I'm really enjoying like this part of the season before like actual games are played and all of our hopes are dashed.
We were not very optimistic last year at this time.
No, it was the exact opposite of this, and rightfully so. So one of my favorite Austin FC stats is the current record for most U.S. Open Cup goals for a first teamer is 1. That's tied between Diego Fagundez
And Ronnie Redis.
Maxi Urruti, who also scored against New Mexico. So the line for this is number of U.S. Open Cup goals by an Austin player, 1.5. And I'm going to include own goals in this too.
By a single player.
By a single player.
In the whole competition.
Yes.
I'll take the under on this one. We're going to spread it out.
I'll take the over. I think just winning 2 matches, somebody's going to score twice.
Wiping Rodney away from the record books. That was going to be so bad, y'all.
We can't. No Rodney Redis erasure here.
Number of Austin FC goal scorers this season. This will be just for MLS games. Surprisingly enough, in 2023 and 2024, both years, it was 15 different players. So I set the line at 15.5 to you, Landon.
15 different players. I feel like I looked this up last year, but do you have any sense of like where that sits among the league? No worries if you don't.
I don't. I kept this mainly Austin FC focused, so I didn't do as much league-wide research. I mostly thought it was interesting that it was the same 2 years in a row.
I'm going to say under. I feel like the goals will be more concentrated this year.
Okay. And Jeremiah?
I'm going to say over because I feel like we're going to have way more than 39 goals that we had last year this year. So there's going to be random guys picking up 1 or 2. I still think overall they'll be more concentrated because I feel like we've done that with Marcelo in the past, like in terms of goal concentration, and it may be to come ahead. But I think it'll be more individual players scoring.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was Matthew Doyle who said, like, if Austin doesn't score 68 goals with all the talent they brought in, what are they even doing?
Which is a wild take.
Are you going to get to...
He had some wild...
He did. He had a lot of wild takes. Are you going to get to argue with Doyle on Soccer Wise at some point, Landon?
I think I'm going to get to argue with a recording of Doyle.
Okay, cool.
But I don't think he'll be there live.
I listened today, and that was the thing I was most excited about.
Okay, next one up is number of Austin FC players called up to senior international rosters.
Oh, man.
We have a lot, and there's some there are some extra considerations, like if the current U.S. striker pool is just ravaged by injuries, so I favor somebody like Vasquez. I wasn't going to count friendlies in this unless either of you have a very strong opinion about that.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the cycle is like this year. How many friendlies are there going to be versus like Nations League things and all of that?
Yeah, I mean,
I think we should count them.
You want to count them? Okay, they will be counted. Okay, and I set the line at 4.5.
And are these only first team players?
As opposed, including like the FC2 team?
Yeah.
I mean, I set it up for first team only, but I'm willing to include the second team if that's something that you guys want to do.
I'm
okay with allowing it, but it has to be first team national team. We're not counting.
Yes, it has to be. Yeah, it has to be senior international.
Right. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Remember, Bobo's gone, Jeremiah. So
yeah, but I assume that's why you asked the question.
That's why I asked the question. But also, like, there's a fair amount of international players, but I guess they probably play for teams that they're not going to qualify for. I was trying to think if there were some other. I haven't studied this, like some other guys in or kind of Bobo-like who weren't on the, who were not on the Austin first team, but still could play for the first team for their national team because it was so lowly ranked. I don't know that right now, so.
This is the perfect line. This is really hard. I'm gonna 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna say over.
Okay,
I feel like over. So we're looking Uzuni, Svatok, Jimmy has been getting call-ups. Väisänen has been semi-regular. Cascante has been pretty regular, and then Vasquez is going to get called into at least one camp somewhere.
Yeah.
So are we getting call-ups or caps? That's another important distinction.
I worded it as call-ups.
Okay, so they went to camp.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Danny's he was further down this list I was looking at, but he's almost certain to get called into at least one as well. So
you're going over?
And Jeremiah?
I will also go over.
Yeah, he went.
Yeah.
I'm loving all the optimism. Okay, I have a couple of, I'm sorry, I have a few individual player ones based on kind of like narratives that I think are coming into the season. The first one is going to be Brad Stuver clean sheets.
Oh man. Well,
And
do you have his
I
number from last
I set
year?
that line at 7.5. Let me look at last season he had 8. In 2023 he had 6, and in 2022 he had 8.
And the line's 7.5, you said?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to go under on this one. I think this is a team that is built to win by scoring more. And I also feel like he can't save every single shot every single year. Like, there's not like a reversion to the mean theme, but he's like played over his head and the team's head so much over 4 years. Like, it's time to give him a little break and provide him some relief, and he's still going to be amazing.
Yeah, I wanted to have a like number of Brad Stuver saves, but that's been so kind of like wildly different over the 4 years in terms of numbers that I thought that was kind of an unfair one. But yeah, I'm kind of surprised you took under because of just like how good Nico's Dallas teams were in terms of defense.
Yeah, I'm going to take the over for that very reason. That I feel like a lot of what Austin has suffered from is putting guys like Julio Cascante, who are not well suited to defending with their faces to goal and in open field, and just putting him in that situation over and over and over again. And based on what I know about Estevez, based on what we've seen in extremely limited action, televised action in this preseason, I think they're going to not do that as much this year, which I hope means more clean sheets for Brad.
Okay, next one I have up is Danny Pereira goals. And again, this is for the MLS regular season. And I set the line at 3.5.
This is mine first?
Yes.
Okay. Did he have 2 last year? No, he just had 1 last year.
Yeah, I set the line thinking through him playing a more advanced midfield position than he's played in the past.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good line because I think
okay.
you're right. He is going to be in that part of the field far more often.
Yeah, he had 1 goal and 4 assists last season.
I feel like I do this every year when we do this. I feel like I've made too many optimistic picks and I need to temper myself a little bit.
I felt like Marcelo would constantly check in with how you guys are doing and looking at like
he would move the line on us sometimes too.
It would keep like updating. It would keep like updating you about like, oh, you picked over 7 times in a row, and I'm just like, no, you guys get no information. You just have to text them to figure this out.
This line is good though. I'll take the under just because I've made too many optimistic choices in a row.
Okay, and then to you, Jeremiah.
I agree. The line is great, and I will take the over. I will continue to be optimistic.
I hope you're right, Jeremiah.
Moon Tower Soccer is brought to you by Sage Wilson Realty. The Sage Wilson team is made up of Austin experts who are client-focused and have over 30 years of combined real estate experience. Our friends at Sage Wilson Realty are giving away 2 tickets to an upcoming match, so fill out the form in the show notes for your chance to win.
If you or someone you know or need a Sage real estate advice in Austin, talk to our friends at Sage Wilson Realty. Be sure to check them out online at sagewilson.com.
Our premier sponsor is McGuire Woods Consulting, helping clients in the public affairs space from lobbying at the local, statewide, and federal levels to digital and communication campaigns across the country.
McGuire Woods Consulting has offices in 10 MLS cities and is proud to support Moon Tower Soccer and support Austin FC's march to the playoffs. Contact our friends at McGuire Woods Consulting at mwcllc.com for more information.
And then I think this one's tradition because I think it's popped up every year, but it's Danny Pereira yellow cards.
Oh man!
And the line I'm setting for this year is 7.5.
Last year was 9.
Yeah, the line is actually a little optimistic because he's gotten 9 every year since 2022.
Gosh, I love the Danny that scores goals and continues to get yellow cards. So I'm just gonna go over for like the maximum chaos version of Danny. I think it should be a little bit lower just because of where he's playing. He's not going to be in a position where he needs to take a professional foul and get a yellow. But he seems to just do it anyhow for the hell of it, whether it's like a professional foul or not. So I'll stay over.
He's still going to be defending centrally, so I don't think it's going to change all that much. I'm going to take the under for a similar reason that I don't think this year we're going to have Danny Pereira on the field all the time. And so I think it could be over because, okay, we missed Danny for a game. That's fine. We actually have more than 3 midfielders. And so we'll be okay without him for a game. But for that reason, I'm going to take the under and say, like, okay, he's maybe not going to be on the field as much. Therefore, he's going to get fewer yellows.
That makes sense. That's also a really good segue because I feel like one of the big storylines for Austin right now is kind of who plays in that more advanced midfield position between him and Owen Wolf. And so the next one up is number of Owen Wolf goal involvements. That's going to be goals and assists. And I set the line at 6.5.
Okay, Owen. Where are you, Owen? He had 1 goal, 4 assists last season. I'm going to take the over on this one. I think what Estevez is trying to do suits Owen quite well. And yeah, I just think he's going to be in positions to be dangerous more often. And so I'm kind of optimistic about what he can do this season.
Now I'm feeling like Landon, where this team's going to score 100 goals if I keep going over. So I don't want to, but I'm going to take the under on this one.
I think you guys already have 7 where you're disagreeing. So I think that's good already. So I'm going to take credit for the lines being good enough to split up opinions. Next up, we have goals by defenders, and this is only going to be offensive goals. We're not going to count own goals. In 2023, we had 10, and in 2024, we had 11. So I set the line at 10.5.
I'm going to try to get ahead of controversy here. And how are we going to count John Gallagher goals if he ends up splitting time?
So this is going to be the one that I'm going to have to pay more attention to because I'm just going to have to look at like the lineups when he's on the field, and just keep track of that. And if there's any kind of like dispute or concern, I'll kind of get with you guys and we'll kind of hammer it out then.
Luckily, I think he's going to be the only one where that's an issue.
That sounds like it. I mean, I could definitely see times where like Kolmanich could like nominally be like a left winger in like a late game situation, but he's still, functionally a left back at all times.
Yeah.
And also like what is it? Goal contributions or goals?
Goals.
Oh, well, yeah, so I'm not counting John Kolmanich for goals. Anyhow, from anywhere.
Okay, and this is Jeremiah's. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was the line?
10.5.
10.5.
There were 10 in 2023. There were 11 in 2024. I made the line 10.5.
I'm going to go over.
It's going to be embarrassing to count up how many goals we're predicting for this season. Oh, I'm going to say under. I think assists from defenders will go up. I think goals from defenders will go down.
I like that as a distinction, and I hope that we actually relied less on the defenders getting into the attack in that way. Next up is combined goals by designated players. That's going to be obviously Bukhari and Vasquez and Azuni. If for some reason one of them is not a designated player anymore, we bring somebody else in, we'll just put that person into that spot of like they're just by designated players.
That feels unlikely this season.
It does, but it's who
possible.
knows?
I mean, we would have said that about a lot of designated players in the past.
I mean, a lot of people are already trying to get onto that, like Mo Salah as a free agent hype train, like that. That's going to be. I think that's going to be this year's Eden Hazard rumor. So the line for that is 30.5 between those 3 players.
Again, good line. 30.5. I'm going to do it. I'm going to say over. I think we can average 10 apiece.
I don't think all 3 will get in double figures, but I'll go over 2. I think they can average 10 apiece. When it's June,
that's kind of what I was.
When it's June and Uzuni's still not in the country, we're all gonna like feel stupid for this. But it's fine.
I mean, can you not put that energy in the world? Like, let's just not let that happen. Like, that'd be great.
We're Austin FC fans, Scott. We can't help it.
I know. With all the designated players come in, our co-leading scorer last year was Jadier Obrian. So I wanted to see how many matches do you think he starts? And I set the line at 10.5.
I'm going to ignore what I just said. about the fact that there's going to be an open spot on the front line until June. Is this just league games?
Yes, this is just going to be MLS regular season.
This is also the part. It's like when you're the spelling bee and you ask for like the sentence and then like pronunciation. Yeah, just to try to buy time.
O'Brien.
to have an answer.
O'Brien.
I'm gonna go over.
No, I'm gonna say over as well. I think there's enough games. We talked about international call-ups earlier, so we're gonna probably be missing at least one or two, if not all three of those guys up top. O'Brien can really slot in most of those spots across the front, so I think he's gonna get quite a bit of run out. Even though I don't know that it'll be much more than that, but I think he will start that many.
Okay. Next one up, sticking with Austin FC wingers, especially after this this past weekend's game where we saw a bunch of very dangerous crosses go through the box where nobody was able to get on the end of them. Osman Bukhari assists 7.5.
We don't have a great standard setting here since he didn't play that many games last year.
We don't. He had 2 assists in 9 appearances. He only played about 600 minutes.
Damn it. I'm going to do it again. We'll say over. We kind of need him to have that many with the other 2 guys hopefully banging him in. But I don't know. Yeah, I'm optimistic about just like getting him one-on-one and burning dudes and then throwing some stuff into the box for the other guys to clean up.
Which he definitely can do, and we got to see that on Saturday when he just kept going at that fullback over and over again in the best way possible. Jeremiah.
Well, since I agreed that they were going to somehow contribute 30.5 goals together over, I'm going to have to also assume that most of the assists are coming from Bukhari.
It was score 30.5 goals.
Yeah, score 30.5. So I'm thinking the other guys are going to score. I'm counting on the guys to score, like the other guys to score the vast majority of those.
Yeah.
And for that to happen, they need to be assisted by Bukhari.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that logic tracks. I think it's a good way of doubling down on your predictions as opposed to hedging. I think it's great. Next up, speaking of designated players scoring goals, Brandon Vasquez goals and assists or goal contributions, I put at 16.5.
Do you happen to have his numbers, his 2 years at Cincinnati that he was the guy?
I can quickly find them. I know that in 2022 he scored 18 goals and had 8 assists. So it had been 26 total goal contributions. And then in 2023, when he fell off, he had 8 goals and 2 assists.
And I'm seeing on the MLS site 8 and 4 in 23, which is probably counting hockey assists.
Okay.
16.5. Well, again, I've already painted myself into the corner here. I almost need him to have that if we're going to get over 30 total. So I'll say over.
No hedging. This is great. I love this.
Yeah, I'm going to hedge.
It means both of you are either going to look like absolute geniuses at the end, or you're going to be like, what did I do?
We never look like geniuses in the end, Scott.
Yeah, the results show is like the most nervous I am all year because I'm like, we're going to have to admit what morons we are. Because most of the time you just get to make predictions and then nobody ever goes back and listens and it just lives in the past. But okay, I'm going to hedge. I'm going to go under.
Going under, okay. I'm going to throw I'm sorry, I have an FC2 one here. Number of players who actually get on the field for Austin FC, the first team and the second team this season.
Oh, I like this one.
And again, this is going to be MLS regular season only. And I set the line at 2.5.
I'm going to go over. Sorry, that was very much up talk.
Question
Pretend
mark.
that was a statement and not a question mark. I'm going to go over.
I want to see. Wait, it was 2.5 his line?
Yes.
I want to say over as well. I think we're going to see Irvin Torres at some point. I think we will see someone like Antonio Gomez or Nico Van Rijn as a short-term call-up at some point because all of our center backs are internationals for the most part and will potentially all be gone in the same week besides Heinz Eich. And so I think there's a good chance one of those guys gets some run out. And then
mean, Jimmy has to, right? He'll probably end up playing both ways still this year, right?
I don't think we'll need Jimmy to play, honestly. But then there's also always a chance of Fodre getting some run with the second team. There's a chance of like someone like Dubert Sarski. I was like trying to pick a match day 20. And if we have everyone healthy, by my estimations, there's one spot left for CJ Fodre and Dubert Sarski. Like we can't have both of them on there with the other 19 obvious selections. So I think one of those two guys will also get some time with both.
Yeah, that was kind of why I kept the line a little bit lower, is just for the nature of having a full squad for the entire year, which we didn't really have last year. I think there's going to be less opportunity for those players to play and get on the field. But I think that's going to be very dependent on some of the international call-ups and also just Nico Estevez's preference on playing some of the kids sometimes. So yeah. This is one that popped up before that I loved, which was the jersey number of the first goal scorer for Austin FC. Those are all out now. I set it at 9.5. So the under would get you obviously Brandon Vasquez, it would get you Danny, it would get kind of it also gets O'Brien, who went to 7 this year because him and Bukhari switched.
Yeah. Do you remember what we picked last year, Scott?
It actually was 2 years ago, and the line was 10.5, and it gave because 10 and under gave you Driussi, Zardes, and Rigoni, and then there's a lot of talk about taking the over because of Rodney, or Julio Cascante.
I was gonna say, I feel like I called my shot, but I don't remember who it was.
I should know that because I listened.
I was just gonna see.
Yeah, I listened to that like on Friday. I feel like I should know that, but it did not stick in my brain, unfortunately.
9.5.
So you get Vasquez and O'Brien and a bunch of midfielders.
Do we know what number Uzuni's gonna wear?
Do you really think that's gonna come into play for this one?
For the first goal scorer?
Yeah, for the first goal scorer of the first game. You think he's gonna be here?
Maybe.
Okay. No, I don't think
I think he's usually worn higher numbers.
I think just based on what's available, he would have to take a higher number.
But yeah, having Bukhari and Vasquez on either side is a good shout there. I'm gonna say over.
You're not gonna call a first goal scorer?
Well, I'll give my reasoning after you pick.
Oh,
okay.
The club side is not that. I'm gonna go over too. Actually,
okay. And then Lynn,
mainly just because there's a lot of numbers that are higher than that.
More options. Okay.
Landon did some basic kindergarten math on me and decided to do that. Okay, then we have the number of new Austin FC partners. We've had a couple of very exciting ones. We had South Padre Island as the official destination spot.
I was going to say, what was it? Official island?
I think it was like official island retreat or something like that. Like some marketing person came up with something. And then we also had Tiff Streets be announced
official
like
cookie
2 weeks ago. Official cookie, which is what made me think of this. I tried to look back through in the most sickos way possible of trying to find how many were like in the season last couple seasons, and that is not as searchable as you'd think it would be.
I think there were some silly ones last year.
I mean, I would contend that the South Padre one is exceedingly silly. But I set the line at 3.5.
Additional from this point forward.
Yes, additional, new.
I have a question about one. I was just go back through some old photos. This is actually one for the past. Remember we met the Queen of the Netherlands? And then there was this like partnership with PSV, right? And
like PSV and KLM and whatever the company's called that makes our grow lights for the field.
Yes, like does that still exist? And then like what? Remember there was like that PSV release had all these things that were going to happen. And remember the Academy went over. Didn't the Academy, the second team, like go over there the first year?
Yeah.
I just wonder if that's something like swept under the rug and forgot, or if that's like still an active partnership.
Yeah, I don't know how long that agreement was.
I haven't heard anything about it since that day, and that feels very much like a but Claudio kind of thing or something.
We're not going to get to hang out with the Queen, Jeremiah.
Yeah, no, it definitely felt like a Claudio thing just based on who's involved at PSV. But I mean, I mean, I'm sorry, you hung out with the queen. You didn't try to like get a phone number just to like reach out again. Have you ever?
We
visited?
we should have texted her and
not,
asked.
we were not allowed near her, Scott.
Yeah. Hung out with the queen from a distance.
Okay, but again, number of new Austin FC partners 3.5, and it's to Jeremiah.
I'm going under. I just don't know what else they could sell new at this point. They've
been pretty busy already too, right? Like they've made a lot of announcements.
I mean, honestly, I would have made this line 5.5 had we not gotten the 2 already. Like, I think that's kind of like going to calculate it a little bit, but you know, as a Manchester United fan, like there is no limit to what sponsorships you can have. You have no idea.
We're gonna say, are we gonna say like it needs to be like press release, tweet, official, kind of thing, like not just like, oh, there's a new vendor in the stadium. It needs to be
it needs to have that template tweet that they put out every time there's a new partner.
Yeah, I'm gonna say under as well. I feel like they've been busy and have gotten their business done early this year.
Okay, and then our last one, the 21st one, is Austin FC Final Finish. This is for the Western Conference standings only, and I'm going to say that higher is the better seed, which would be closer to the top seed, and then obviously we go the other way. I put the line at 4.5,
and so at 4.5, over is supporter shield, under is wooden spoon.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And this is Landon.
What number did you say?
4.5.
I'll take the under on that. I'm going to say, I think top 7 is success this year, but fourth seems ambitious.
Okay. Jeremiah?
I will agree on that one.
Okay, because I've been feeling as though the West is not as stacked as it has been in the past, and I feel like there's a lot of teams that are kind of like, besides like Seattle, I'm not really sure who's going to be good in the West.
I agree, but we had a lot of ground to make up from the last couple of years, and I think we will be better. And I think even 7th, I'll probably be a little disappointed, but yeah, 4th still seems like maybe a bridge too far with this first year with a new coach, with a lot of these new players. I feel like they might need some time to build into it.
Okay, and then our tiebreaker this year is the total number of Austin FC goals in MLS regular season.
Ooh.
And since you're going to...
I don't need a number. Screw Matt Doyle. I'm going over. I don't care. I don't care what it is.
You don't even know the line yet.
Don't make it 97 now.
You have to pick a number. This is the tiebreaker.
Dang it! Yeah.
Oh, we don't have a line. We're just picking a number.
Yeah, no line. This is the tiebreaker. You have to pick an actual total number of goals. Last year there was 39. The year before that there was 49, and in 2022 there was 65.
67. I feel like in the past we've like written out a piece of paper and showed it at the same time, but I'm also not. I'm okay with not doing that this time around.
I'm gonna say 57.
Okay.
And we're just going closest to, right?
Yeah, no, we're not doing Price is Right rule.
Yeah,
Price is Right rules. It's whoever's closest.
I think that's a BS rule most of the time.
I would agree. Okay, so looking at this, we have 10 that you disagreed on, which I think is good. That's a good number. Toward the end, we got a little more crowd think a little bit. But yeah, no, I think it shows that there's a lot of optimism about the team and a lot of optimism about the new players coming in, and so I'm glad that we're able to like capture that moment of like when we're still like excited and optimistic about things.
It's been 2 years. We're due for optimism, only to be heartbroken again, probably. How do we feel about this? Like, listeners, please don't add up the number of goals we just predicted Austin FC to score, because it's probably ridiculous. But
I actually don't think it's that many.
Yeah, I guess the lines were spread out enough that they were not necessarily mutually exclusive across the board.
Yeah,
there.
I mean, really, you only committed to
40 something.
34 goals. Because
because a lot of them were
30.5 is over, and Danny Pereira goals 3.5 is over.
Okay,
but so you didn't commit to that many goals scored. It just has to be by specific players.
All right. Well, I guess we'll find out in November, December, whenever we run this back, how good or bad we did. But anyway, Scott, thanks so much for doing this. We really appreciate it. We want to thank our games master emeritus one more time, Marcelo Teson, for doing this last few years and kind of being the driving force behind us doing this. Thanks to our acting games master, Scott Specht, for stepping in this year and doing it. Yeah, and then we will have, we're not going to have it out at time of publishing the fan, like the listener submission, but we will have that out sometime in the next week or so, and we'll be sure to plug it on next week's show and put it out on social media and stuff like that. All right, Scott, where can folks find you? Anything to plug?
You can find me on Blue Sky as Scott A. Speck. You can read me on the We Are Austin TV blog, which is switching to Substack for this season. And you can hear me on the Suffering from Joy podcast with Devin and Brad and Seth, who knows everything.
All right. Well, we really appreciate it. Thanks for doing this.
No problem. Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Thanks, man.
All right, we are back. We want to thank Scott one more time for helping us out with this game. Looking forward to see how bad all of you beat us once we get the listener form out into the world, and then we'll probably not do great, but it's always fun anyway.
It is. And we didn't talk about this with Scott, but there will be prizes of some sort. I don't remember. I think we make the prizes up every year, but it'll be, we'll figure it out whenever we officially release the form, what we're going to give away this year. One thing we did officially get last week from Austin and not random Instagram influencer was the sort of official jersey look. There's a picture with Gary Clark Jr. on it. Looked exactly what we thought it would be. I'm a big fan of it. Then we also got an email, I think last week if you're a season ticket holder, saying you could get it for, with a 10% discount, but it still is what, 168 or something. I appreciate the 10% off. It's still not incredibly reasonably priced.
Do we think that, so there was this leak, like a few different leaks, none of them great photos of the jersey. Do we think this Gary Clark thing got pushed out early so that they could kind of get ahead of the narrative and maybe be like, oh no, this really cool guy is wearing it and looks great in it. So maybe it is actually cool.
So you really want it? Yeah, maybe so. And I went back.
If so, I think it worked because
yeah, I think it
seemed
worked.
like the mood among the fan base shifted dramatically after that photo came out.
Yeah, I do. I think so too. That's right. I mean, I kind of I was in from the like accidental leak photo, but you're right. A lot of people that had gone from like, I'm not going to buy this or I'm going to wait till it's on sale or whatever to like, this is going to be mine. That happened then. Then last week we got word that maybe people should hold their calendars for some kind of event sometime on Thursday the 13th.
No, 2/12.
Well, no. Well, I heard Thursday, and then today a thing came out. So I heard Thursday, season opening party / event / whatever, and then today we got a 2/12 at 10 a.m. coming soon, like official from Austin FC.
Oh, I didn't see the 10 a.m.
Yeah, it's at 10 a.m. So as far as I know, something's happening on the 12th at 10 a.m. Something may or may not be happening on Thursday. I don't believe that it's going to be the level of like big event. I don't think anybody's renting out an ACL or anything like that, like maybe it has been in the past, but I don't know. Stay tuned on Austin FC social media for things going on related to the jersey this week.
We also are starting to get season ticket member gifts. I actually got mine today.
Oh, I didn't. I haven't seen mine. So, okay, tell me about it.
Can we spoil? Are we okay to spoil and say what it is, or should we save the surprise for folks as they unbox?
Okay, for those of you that aren't on Blue Sky or Reddit or in any of the, like, close your ears. But go ahead.
Fast forward 30 seconds.
Okay, what is it,
yeah,
Landon?
I got my box. I have 4 season tickets, so I got 4 little Yeti tumblers. It has the alternate logo, so like the tree logo without the outline around it, and then has an engraving of like original Oak Collective member or something, and
I
says
think it's original
2021
21
on it.
I believe, yeah. Oh,
but it's nice. I mean, I know that some people have higher hopes or expectations from these things than I do. I'm happy with it. Like, I haven't seen other folks' opinion. What has the general consensus been?
they're widely varied. I mean, there's people who are like, I'm just happy I get any kind of gift. And there's people who are like, anything that's not like the standard size cup that's a little bit different, like I'm in favor of. And there are also other people that are, I've already got 20 Yetis and I'm giving them to Goodwill. I don't need another one. Right. There's all across the board, but I think it's good. And I love the alternate logo.
I do
And
too.
yeah, I think I love it because it's the alternate, and I don't think I would want to see it all the time, but everything I've got with that logo on it, I've just have really enjoyed.
Yeah. I don't know. I may be in the minority here. I don't care as much about the season ticket member gifts. I think this is a nice one. If they're going to send it out, I think this is good. Like, that's an expensive thing. One thing I do care about is like they've given us most of the additional competitions for free for at least a game or two. I'd rather them keep doing that than start making us buy tickets to Open Cup and whatever else we ever play in. But yeah, I'm happy with the Little Yeti.
And I do like that you got 4, because I feel like sometimes it's the question between like, is it per membership or per ticket or whatever? So the fact that you've got one for everybody with your tickets, I think is cool. And also, that's just from knowing production, like that costs more because some people have 2 and some people have 3 and some people have 4. And so they've had to provide different layouts. We also got news that Alex Ring, as many players do when they're sort of near the end of their career, going back home, signed a deal in Finland. Like, it's not that surprising when you think about, I guess what that means is he couldn't get enough money in MLS to want to stay around, as opposed to just going back home and sort of taking the easy life.
Yeah, I'm curious if he actually wanted to stay or not. I could see that being the case, but maybe they were just ready to go home too. So either way, it seems like he's ending up in a pretty good situation, and yeah, hope the best for him.
Another thing we got a couple days ago, another announcement of 2 Liga MX teams. So on Saturday, March 22nd, Tigres and Pumas are going to play. Have they played each other? I know they both played at Q2 Stadium before. I don't know if they've played each other before, but I mean, I dig these. This seems like a great way to grow interest among fans. These are 2 of the historic clubs in Liga MX and 2 clubs that have like a lot of fans. And I think these have typically been pretty well attended for these types of matches. And this seems like one where I might want to go.
Is it right that this is the day before an Austin FC home game?
Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. We host San Diego the following day at 3 p.m. So I'm curious if that will eat into the attendance or if they're expecting it to be different crowds. I don't see how it could be entirely different crowds, but yeah, I mean, I think that'll definitely affect my choice in going. I will probably not be going to Q2 2 days in a row, but maybe I will.
Yeah, and good luck on the grounds crew for covering a match at 7 p.m. and then having to get the pitch ready for a match at 3 p.m. the next afternoon.
Yeah.
And then our last Austin FC news is that we got, I think this is Friday, confirms 2025 radio broadcast partners and talent. Good to see our buddy Lincoln Rose back again, which I think he has done all 4 years, right? I think that's right. Announced. So this is going to be on 97.5 again, iHeartRadio. And then on the Spanish language station, I think this is Ignacio Escamilla is back, and this is his second year as the full play-by-play person. Been around a long time, so good to have this as an option. I don't know. Have we seen if that's going to be the option on the alternate option on the Apple broadcast for this year, like it has been in the past?
I don't know. I would assume they would continue that. It probably doesn't really cost them anything more to do it, which is often the reason why they do or don't do something. And so I would imagine that would still be available. And I've been surprised by how many fans I've heard who take advantage of that and actually use it, it's a cool option to have if you want the more local voice.
Yeah, and then the final, this is not directly Austin related, but we got Sportico put out their MLS franchise value list again. Austin ends up, I think it's the 6th for the second year in a row. So behind LA, Miami, LA, Atlanta, New York City FC, top 5 in revenue across the board. So just, hey, it's better to be worth a lot than not.
I thought it was interesting looking at the revenue. They have it for the last 3 years here. Revenue has gone up year over year. So like 2023 revenue was higher than 22, 24 was higher than 23, which with the team not being as good, with fewer ticket resales, fewer people buying individual tickets and things like that, you could have maybe seen a reality where it did go down or stagnate a little bit, but that is clearly not the case.
Yeah,
Which is like I think maybe some fans will be annoyed to see that because, okay, I think a lot of fans will want the club to feel the pain of not having a good team, and that will then encourage them to put a better product on the field. But it looks like Austin FC doesn't have that much, that much reason to change anything from that regard.
But I guess the positive side of that is like Austin, because a Dallas Cowboys fan who's been frustrated for decades by the fact that Jerry Jones cares about piling up money and not winning, I appreciate that Austin FC has not dropped in revenue, but still this offseason invested a ton of money in players to protect that future revenue, right? Because I think at some point, I'm sure they've done, like you get the surveys, I get the surveys, they've probably done a ton of research that shows like at some point things need to change, that revenue number is going to be threatened, but it's good to see this club proactively reinvesting that back on the field before the numbers drop.
Yeah, and even if they're not dropping, like actually dropping year over year, they're certainly not going to be maximizing their revenue if the team continues to suck year over year. So yeah, I think you're right, and I hope they're drawing that line and making that connection and going to continue to do what they can to make us happy so that we don't complain about paying $18 for an electric jellyfish.
Or we do it in good nature. We're always going to complain about it.
Is that everything, Jeremiah?
I think that covers it.
All right. Well, before we wrap up, I'd like to remind you to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you are listening to this right now. It will help us a lot in helping other folks find the show. Come find us on the internet. Sign up for the Patreon. We're already in the works for gifts for this year, so we'll be coming out with more information on that soon. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back next week to cover Austin FC news. And then I think it's okay to plug
Let's do it.
a special thing. So later this week, I'm going to be a guest on Soccer Wise to help them do their Austin FC preview. We're also going to air that segment on our show next week. So that'll be part of the show. We'll also cover whatever other news happens between now and then, but that'll be part of the show as well.
And we're going to have our first season preview, which you reminded me today, and I had totally forgotten about. But yeah, we're going to talk about our first chance to preview the Sporting KC match.
Yeah, one more show till game day. That's wild. Can't wait. All right. Well, thanks so much for listening. We'll be back next week. Until then, I'm Landon Cottam.
I'm Jeremiah Bentley.
We'll catch you next time.
When no one is around.
Thank for nothing, see you never.
La gente.
Oh my God.
Zulu chip boom boom sauce.
Yeah.